LVRNC.
Hi there guys, it's LV. Welcome to my channel and my first ever video. Today we are going to build a PC that is good enough in today's modern PC standards. We do have a budget of $400. Preferably, I want to keep it under $400. If we really want to push it, $450. But there are some boxes I want to tick for this build. Number one, the performance has to be good enough to run the latest games out today. Two, it has to be aesthetically pleasing, giving sort of a bespoke vibe. Three, there needs to be room for upgradability. Essentially, this is just the beginning of its journey towards its final upgrade path in terms of looks and performance. During the end of its journey, it's not going to have crazy specs, but the good enough PC will be better than what we build today. Number four, this goes hand in hand with the upgradability factor. And it's a fact that we're gonna have to use modern parts as much as possible. Let me also preface this by saying I'm not an experienced PC builder by any means, and I'm sort of winging it, so I'm not even sure how this will turn out. Might be one of those things where it looks good in your head, but the end product is it just doesn't look good, but we'll see. Hopefully it turns out well. So that being said, let's go over the parts list. For the GPU, I was able to snag this 1660 Super for around 60 bucks. Originally, the seller wanted $80 for it, but luckily he agreed to my offer. Even though it is a dated GPU, it still holds up to modern AAA gaming. Granted, it's not going to run them at the highest setting. Not to mention, it still works fantastic for esports gaming. Now for the CPU, I originally wanted to get the 12th gen i3, but the seller who sold me the GPU also happened to be selling this, the 13th gen i3 13100F. He sold it to me for 50 bucks and I just could not pass that up. Now, if you decide to go with the 12th gen chip, it is still very comparable to the 13th gen variant. Regardless whether you go with the 12th or 13th gen, this CPU will definitely pair up well with our graphics card, and it will definitely hold it down whenever we decide to upgrade to a more powerful graphics card in the future. Overall, I was able to snag a CPU and GPU for $110 in total, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now for the motherboard, I went with the ASUS Prime B760M-AD4. It is an open box from Amazon for about 85 bucks. Usually it looks like it retails around $130 brand new. Now the reason why I went with this motherboard is because out of the box, it is 13th gen ready without having to do a BIOS update. Now, of course, if you went with a 12th gen chip, there are motherboards available for a lot cheaper if you go to the used market. There are even brand new ones that are cheaper. Power supply, I bought this semi-modular Apevia Galaxy PSU rated at 80 plus gold for 45 bucks new on eBay. It is 650 watts, so it gives us some headroom for upgradability, especially for the GPU. Now, I know Apevia is it's just that brand. They're not great, but they're not bad either. But for this particular power supply, I've actually ran it on another build, and it hasn't given me any issues whatsoever. So it's good enough. For RAM, I'm going with two 8GB sticks of DDR4 RAM from Silicon Power with a clock speed of 3200 megahertz, and it is CL16 as well. I was able to get these for a total of 20 bucks, and I think 16 gigs of RAM is still a good sweet spot for gaming and general use. For the storage, I went with the Silicon Power M.2 SSD, and I got the 1TB version. However, you can go with less storage, like a 500GB SSD, or less for cheaper. But in my opinion, I would go no less than 1TB. Price difference is honestly not that big. I would just pay the extra few dollars. And this only cost me $42. I know the 500 gig variant, it was like $29. So to me, get the 1TB. So unfortunately, the seller who sold me the CPU did not provide the stock CPU cooler, so I bought an aftermarket cooler from Thermalright for $17 on Amazon. If you have the stock cooler with the CPU, it's definitely good enough and it will save you a bit of money. Sticking to the theme, I also bought some case fans from Thermalright. These were around 12 bucks, and I think these will complement the case well, giving us some decent airflow. Now this is completely optional, but I did buy this CPU contact frame for $10 since the stock ILM is notorious for bending the CPU. You can go for the Thermal Grizzly, but for budget's sake, we'll just stick to the theme here. it is going to be good enough. For the case, I originally wanted to go with MicroATX. Unfortunately, with our budget of $400, there was just no way of doing that with the prices of the SFX power supplies and just MicroATX motherboards. So, you know, we had to go with our plan B. So what I went with, it's a Bluegears MicroATX case, and as you can see, it clearly takes some design cues from the Lianli 011, but this one is a lot cheaper. This was about 55 bucks, and actually I think it looks pretty nice. All in all, I spent about $386 with a mixture of used and new parts. That being said, let's put it all together and hopefully it turns out well in both looks and performance. So unfortunately, my SD card was corrupted, so I was only able to salvage some of my footage. I wanted to do a step-by-step commentary originally, but instead we just had to make do with a speed build montage. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoy. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out, but that begs the question, how does it perform? So here are some benchmarks. First up to bat, we have eldenring at high settings. We're locked in at 60 frames per second, and it's actually pretty consistent. So overall, you get a smooth gameplay experience, and it looks great. Next on the list, we have Hogwarts Legacy at medium settings with FSR set to quality. We get a good 70 to 85 frames per second, and overall, for medium settings, I think this game runs fantastic. Third, we have Baldur's Gate 3 at medium settings with FSR 2.2 set to quality. We get about 60 to 85 frames per second. So it's a very playable experience, and I think it doesn't look too bad actually. And finally, we have Cyberpunk 2077 at high settings with FSR set to balanced. This one actually surprised me considering how intensive this game is. We get a consistent 60 to 65 frames, and if you go to medium settings, it's actually going to run better, and it won't look too bad as well. But yeah, I'm actually very surprised by this one. Well, that does it for our good enough build. Overall, I am very happy with the final product, considering we only spent $386 in total. Now, looks-wise, I think it looks great. It's definitely no fractal design build, but I could confidently display this in my office or living room. Now, in terms of performance, I was actually very surprised with how well it ran some of the games at medium to high settings, and it never went below 60 frames per second, so that's what's very cool about it. So if you guys want, let me know down in the comments below. I could follow up with more benchmarks with different games. And then the thermal performance, that actually really surprised me. I've had terrible experiences with the single fan GPUs in the past, but with this particular one, it actually ran great. It never went above 75 degrees. And I was gaming on Cyberpunk for a couple of hours, so I'm actually very surprised with that. But if you want to get into PC gaming but your budget is tight, I definitely recommend this setup. So you can closely follow what I did with this build. Yeah, anyways, that's the good enough build. Anyways, I'm curious as to what you guys think of the good enough build. Would you do anything differently? Leave a like, comment, you know, all of that good stuff. Subscribe. I'm honestly not sure where this channel is gonna go, but to whoever ended up watching this whole thing of me just mumbling, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, and peace.